Yeah, I'm about to go live. Mm, mm. Tiffany Dover. Yeah, she's our girl. Mm, yeah. If you guys can hear me properly, say Tiffany Dover. I'd appreciate it. Gonzalo has just been abducted. Nah. A CRP, a man without a country? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, she's our girl. Oh, wait. Yeah. Wait. If you guys can hear me properly, say Tiffany Dover. I'd appreciate it.
Wait.
Gonzalo has just been abducted. Nah. A CRP, a man without a country? Yeah, kind of. Hello? Am I still streaming? Because I was hearing myself echoing. It was the weirdest thing. Okay, so maybe that was just a slight technical kerfuffle. Why don't you hit me with a plus one, just to make it really simple, really easy. And there seems to be more problems. No echo now, but it seems to fade, like because I'm doing this on my phone, because on my gear, Coach Kino, man, I've got all my gear in my office and I can't get to my office. It's locked tighter than a drum. And yeah, so I don't know what's what. Okay. I'm marking a little time just to get people on board and also to make sure that technically things are what the fuck? Okay, we're having serious fucking problems here. Because it's after a few minutes, after a couple of minutes, the screen fades out, like it goes down. Like what the fuck? YouTube, man, come on. Hmm? Yes, I know it's not lit, but what happens is that, like the routine of smoking, I started smoking again, by the way. Yeah, because those last couple of days, man. Okay, let me get started now. We got 1,000 people. Yeah, way to go. Way to go. I'm a little bit frazzled, and so you're going to have to forgive me. I'm a little bit frazzled. I'm a little bit out of sorts because there's been all kinds of very interesting things happening over the last couple of days. And I'd appreciate if you would cut me a little slack. And do keep in mind that this video, this live stream rather, it's going to be all over the place. Okay, I have an outline. I wrote an outline on my computer, but even though I wrote the outline for my computer, I'm just a little bit out of sorts. Hang on, let me see if I can figure out how to fix this damn thing because it like fades. It's on my phone, but every so often it fades, and that's unnerving because it doesn't allow me to just keep on talking. Show the outline. Well, I'll show you the computer. This one here. Yeah. So the past 36 hours have been kind of intense, man. I what day is it today? The 3rd. So I got to Kharkov on the 1st of March, which is, I guess, my birthday, the day after the 28th. And what happened was that, on the 2nd, yesterday, in the morning, we had, like bombings and rockets and shit. And then around, I guess it must have been 1 p.m. or so, I've lost track of the hours, to tell you the truth. We had our first airstrike. The first airstrike that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, like real airstrike, like a plane flying and, sending some, guided missiles or whatever. Yeah, it was pretty intense. And then in the evening at roughly 6:20, some men came to kill me. Yeah, and that's just fucking bizarre, man. I mean, it was just fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? But that happened, and I lucked out, and I'll talk all about it. And it was the real fucking deal, man. And in fact, it looks like a bunch of people were killed yesterday. I'm not kidding. I wish I were. Oh man, this fucking thing, man. I gotta like touch the fucking thing every 5 minutes. So yeah. So I hope that this fucking thing is recording, by the way. Well, let's see. Okay. I'll talk all about it. Yeah, but I'm marking time a little bit just before I get like started. When I get to, I don't know, well, I was going to say 1500, but now we are at 1512. By the way, just so that you know, if the lights wink out, if the thing is interrupted, stay on because it could be just a momentary interruption, and I'll pick up the stream again. And just go to the channel and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Now, why am I doing it on the Gonzalo Lira channel? Well, this is gonna sound really fucking stupid, but fuck it. I want my Gonzalo Lira channel to hit 100,000 subscribers. As simple as that, man. AdSense revenue, that's nice, but I really want to get that fucking silver plaque for my eponymous channel. So just please subscribe to it, and I'm going to be doing all my future live streams about the situation in Ukraine on my Gonzalo Lira channel because I want to get 100,000. I want my little fucking silver plaque. Fuck you if it's juvenile and stupid, because it is. But we all have our juvenile moments and our silly little obsessions, and I want my little silver plaque. I wanted to say, Gonzalo Lira's channel. Yeah. And the revenue, I don't know how much I'd get. A few $100s, maybe a couple of grand, maybe. Fuck that. I mean, what's interesting is to do these things, to do them. I enjoy them. I look forward to them. Yeah. And so anyway, the preamble. So if this winks out for a bit, assume that the electricity just went out for a short bit, or the internet went out for a little bit, and it'll be back. Okay. And if it's not, don't assume that a bomb hit me. Okay. Or assassins came for me. I'm currently in a very, very safe location. I can say it's in Kharkov. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter where it is because Kharkov is a city of 1.4 million. Okay. So, it's like a needle in a stack of needles. And so I'm not particularly concerned about, people knowing where I am. If something happens out there, okay, I'll go check it out, but I'm not going to bring you with me. Okay. I'm not going to show you, but if the sound comes, you'll hear it. A little over an hour ago, I guess, there was the loudest fucking bang I've ever heard in my life. I mean, not kidding. I mean, really, it scared the fuck out of me. I could feel it, and it was like the one bomb, like all day has been quiet, Last night was incredibly frazzled, and I'll get into the details in just a little bit. But, today, the whole day has been incredibly quiet. Nothing much going on. A couple of times, like the distant sound of artillery fire or missiles or some war machine going on, you know what I mean? And that was like far away, but very far away. And then, like, I guess it must have been 6:30 local time, I want to say, something like that. I was out smoking a cigarette because I picked up smoking again. Because, I told you guys that when the war started, I was like shitting my brains out every fucking morning, right? And smoking helped. Yeah. Because every fucking morning, man, I was like shitting my fucking brains out. Just shitting it all out, just like out the window, you know what I mean? And it was all like, running and unpleasant. But started smoking again, it's like nice and hard, nice logs. But every fucking morning, everything comes out, And of course, it's fear. Yeah, because of course I'm scared, man. I wouldn't be human if I weren't. It's perfectly normal to be afraid. I always tell you fuckers this. It's perfectly normal to be afraid. What's not acceptable is to let your fear dictate your actions. Okay? You wouldn't be human if you did not feel fear. And feeling fear is actually a good thing. It's a sign of your humanity, of being present in the moment. But if you allow your fear to dictate your actions, like what the fucking West is fucking doing now, and we'll get into that, well, then you're a fucking bitch now, aren't you? Yeah. I mean, you can't let that happen because, of course, when you do things out of fear, you make mistakes, horrible mistakes. Anyway, okay, so we got a couple of grand. Oh, wow, this is very interesting. 2,000 watchers, viewers. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is if I go out, it's no big deal. Stay on, and I'll try to get back on. If it's not possible, it's not possible, and that's that. Okay. Number two, please subscribe. You know, I want to hit that 100K mark. Number three, if you send a super chat, thank you very much, but I'm not going to read it because I'm just not up for it. I'd appreciate it, and later I'll look over the super chats and I'll, thank you very much. I'll just say that preemptively, but I'm just not up for it because my head is really frazzled. And if I start making all kinds of, going all over the place, you're just going to have to forgive me because the last day has been heavy. It's been extraordinarily heavy. Mhm. Because when I was in Kiev, the war was happening kind of like far away. I mean, I would hear automatic fire once in a while from the fucking criminals who got hold of those AK-74s that the Zelensky regime was handing out like fucking candy to all the people. Mhm. I'd hear that fire fairly consistently. Mhm. That's something that the mainstream media is not saying. That they, put out all these weapons to the people, to defend Ukraine, right? And that shit. But those weapons, they filtered so incredibly fast to the criminal element. And that criminal element is going out there and using these fucking weapons they're shooting each other, but soon enough, when they have themselves organized in their pecking order, they're going to turn those weapons on the civilians. Okay. And any fool could have seen that coming. Okay. It was fucking evil of the Zelensky regime, but it's not the only evil that regime does. The current regime in Ukraine. And here is something that I want to state, and I'm going to state repeatedly throughout this broadcast. You see, there is a difference between the Zelensky regime and the Ukrainian nation and the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian armed forces. The Zelensky regime is separate. And I want to make that really fucking clear. See, when I shit on the Zelensky regime, and this whole fucking video, this whole broadcast is going to be me shitting on them because they're fucking despicable pigs. They're fucking corrupt. Nefasto, in the great word in Spanish. Well, I am shitting on the Zelensky regime, not the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people do not deserve this horrible government that they have, this horrible leadership that's not even properly Zelensky because I'm calling it the Zelensky regime. But it's not Zelensky. It's an oligarch. And I'm going to talk about him. And I'm going to talk about him in some detail. Okay? And I want to make it really, really clear that it has nothing to do with the Ukrainian people or the Ukrainian armed forces or the Ukrainian nation. The Ukrainian armed forces are brave people trying to follow orders and do what they are told to do by whom they believe to be their legitimate authority. And the Ukrainian people are, as far as I'm concerned, they are the loveliest people. They are so kind. They have that typical brusque attitude of Eastern Europeans, and yet at the same time, they have like this sweetness and gentleness to them that I find so incredibly appealing. Very different from the Polish attitude or Russian attitude. Um, Similar, I guess, a little bit to the Belarusian attitude, or at least the Belarusians that I have met, seem to be very much like Ukrainians. Just a gentleness and kindness, and that brusqueness, that Eastern European brusqueness, that once you get used to it, you realize, oh, it's not that they're mean; they're just, kind of like straight to the point kind of thing, no fucking around. Okay. So anyway, the point I want to make is that I do not want you to fall for the trap of identifying the Zelensky regime with the Ukrainian people or the Ukrainian nation or the Ukrainian armed forces. They are separate entities. There's the Zelensky regime and Ukraine and its people and armed forces. I want to make that really clear because the people who are currently running Ukraine, the Zelensky regime, they're corrupt, they're evil, and I will show you why and explain why in some detail. And they are people that no one should support. And this is something that a lot of people are going to be bothered by, but it's the truth that in many ways, Vladimir Putin's war of aggression on Ukraine, this invasion of Ukraine, which is what it is, let's not call it a police or a special operation or any bullshit like that. It's an invasion, but in many ways it was justified. And that's a hard fact, and I'm going to explain why. But I try to be as even-handed as possible. Oops. I try to be as even-handed as possible, but at the end of the day, I make my judgments, and I call a spade a spade. No, I don't call it a spade a spade. I call a spade a fucking shovel. And what Vladimir Putin did, has carried out over the past week, is an invasion, plain and simple. And this euphemism bullshit, fuck that. It's an invasion. Is it wrong to invade a country? Well, it depends now, doesn't it? You know, everybody's saying that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was unjustified. That's a lie. That's an outright lie. It was very justified with a lot of really, really good reasons. And the shock for me is not that Russia invaded Ukraine. The shock for me is that Russia took its sweet time to invade Ukraine. If I had been the dictator of Russia, I would have invaded Ukraine years ago. I'm talking 5, 8, 10 years ago. I mean, the governments running Ukraine are so corrupt and so despotic and despicable that they should have been invaded ages ago. I'm not kidding. It's not the people, it's not the country, it's not the armed forces, it's the government. And especially this last one, which is it's a nightmare. And let me get to it. Okay, so that was sort of like a I don't know, I guess a warming up kind of thing. I mean, let's what time is it, man? Oh man, and I hate this fucking thing that I have to be constantly checking to make sure that the fucking thing is fucking okay. You're gonna have to wait up a second. I'm gonna try to figure out if I can fix this fucking thing. Orientation is locked. Rotate device back. Great. It keeps like okay. Let me see this. There. Okay. And oops. There. Let's see if it stays. You know, because I don't want to end the stream and start it again. That's just stupid, right? Oh, fuck it. Okay. Okay, so let's start with this thing. You know, I got an outline here. You know, I prepped it. Oh, fuck that. Some phone. Okay, so this is what I want to tell you. There is... Shit. Okay. There's a YouTuber that I admire quite a bit, or I used to admire him. Now I kind of like despise him. Because this guy consistently punches down. He's a YouTuber with a hell of a lot more talent than I. And he's somebody that I used to admire and respect and just follow and just thought was just aces. And the fact of the matter is that he's kind of like... He punches down, bottom line. You know, recently he did some stream where he was just mocking some guy who's just, you know, he's mentally deficient, you know, and then nobody living in some like trailer park or a car in the middle of nowhere. And I'm gonna have to cut this thing because I'm wondering if that phone rang. That phone ringing. Okay, well, I'll tell you real quick. Yesterday, some guys came for me, okay? I had a fucking outline, and now I'm gonna have to quit it, or skip it, or whatever the fuck. Yesterday, I had, you know, like around 6:20, you know, there was that airstrike I told you about at 1 p.m. And then around, you know, the rest of the afternoon doing other stuff and, you know, just freaking out. And I was at my apartment. And what happened was that I decided that I wanted to go and get a cigarette. And like I said, I started smoking again, you know, with the start of this whole situation. And it wasn't like I really wanted to go smoke a cigarette, but it was like this weirdest feeling that I was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. And I was thinking, oh, it's gonna be cold as balls. And I'm like, oh, fuck it, come on, just go and smoke a cigarette. And, you know, that's kind of like a weird attitude. So I went down and smoked a cigarette, you know, and I was pacing around outside of my apartment, you know, because usually when I'm smoking, I'm pacing and thinking and whatnot. And these guys showed up, and like they were dressed in civilian clothes. Sorry, hang on. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So what happened was, um, I'm very frazzled, as you can tell. What happened was that I was smoking a cigarette. I was actually finishing it, and I was like putting it out. I mean, I was like walking towards the door, and right by the door was an ashtray. Like one of those typical, stands like to put out cigarettes, right? Those round ones, right? I'm walking towards it, right next to the door of the building, and the building has this heavy security door. And these guys, they're ahead of me, and they're coming up the stairs, and they go to the same thing, to the door, but ahead of me. And a couple of them glanced my way, but just dismissed me. And the funny thing was that I'm in the typical outfit, in like the orange cap, the glasses, though I might have had the other pair, and my long black overcoat, right? And they didn't notice me. They just didn't notice me. They weren't paying attention. And what happened was that they went in, and they started having like a kerfuffle in Russian with the lady at the desk. And the lady at the desk is, there are several. Okay, so obviously me mentioning that there's a lady at the desk, like they're like five or something like that. They got upset, like real fucking upset. And my rule is, if I don't understand what the fuck they're saying, I'm not gonna get involved. I mean, it's not my fucking problem. It's kind of like prison rules. You know what I'm saying? Somebody gets into some kerfuffle, it's their business, and I'm gonna get out of the way because I don't want to have to deal with shit, especially a fucking foreign language, right? I don't speak a word of Russian. So anyway, these guys, they're all upset. Well, not all of them. See, one of them, big guy, he was the one who was upset, and there was another guy who was like smaller, trim, and he looked really dangerous, and they all looked military. They have that bearing, like good posture. Like you can tell a guy who's been in the military or whose career military. My own family is a long line of naval officers in Chile, and my grandfather had ramrod straight posture all his life, even as an old man. I mean, he looked military because these fuckers, they're disciplined that way, right? So, this guy, or these guys rather, they looked like they were, and they went in, and I sort of like stayed back, hung back, kind of like, but outside, because see, they were crowding by the door, by the lady there, and they went in, okay, and I came in right after, and the lady stopped me. And the guys got in the elevator, and now the elevator, they must have been away, maybe 10 meters, something like that. Okay, I mean at least, yeah, 10 meters, and they marched very purposefully to where they were going, and the lady stopped me, and she doesn't speak English or Spanish for that matter, and I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian. And she said to me, she babbled to me in Russian. I'm like, oh man, you know. And I just figured that those guys are just some random guys coming for whomever. It's not my fucking problem, right? And finally, she just pointed and said, "Banderista." And then she pointed at me. And I'm like, and she just started pushing me out the door. And she knows I live there. She pushed me out the fucking door. She like, go. You know, and I live in a well, I wanted to do like the false modesty thing. That's, oh, it's not actually a luxury building, but fuck it, it is. Okay, I live in an expensive building. It's expensive to live there. Only rich people live there. Okay, and rich people who, every morning when I would go to work, to my office, right, I'd walk out and there'd be a couple of cars there, the big black SUVs for a couple of important people who lived in the fucking building, right? To pick them up to take them to their fucking job, right? I would just walk, pretending that it's healthier, but it's just I'm cheap and I don't want to hire a driver full time. But anyway, the point, um, the lady's pushing me out the fucking door, and it's kind of like clicked, okay, and it clicked because of something really stupid. Some guys I've been in touch with on Telegram, because like I had my Telegram chat, and they were great guys. And I just a bunch of retards and just a lot of hilarity. I mean, just some of it was just really fucking fun, right? And I got to be friends with a couple of those guys, nice guys. And I had to shut down my chat because what happened was that, see, the reason these guys showed up at my apartment was that my CRP live streams, right, about the situation, well, they went viral. And one of them in particular got picked up and chopped up and packaged by a Russian TV news station. And this piece is 6 minutes long and has like a lot of my shit. Dude, it went viral. It went all over Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. Okay. And the thing is, see, at the moment it came out, and since I don't speak Russian, I couldn't make an evaluation on my own. And a lot of people who saw it said, oh, this is like, you come across as a Putin stooge, and you just like, you come across as fucking evil and blah, blah. And I was like, fuck that. I mean, I'm not anti-Ukraine. On the contrary, I fucking live here. I love this fucking place, man. I mean, for all its problems, and it has a ton of problems, there's something about the country that I really like. And of course, I'm not going to shit on the fucking country. Come on, man. I'm a retard, right? But I'm not that fucking retarded. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, but a lot of people seem to get like, that I was a Putin apologist and that was anti-Ukrainian and that was like a, evil Quisling kind of guy. And since I don't speak Russian, I just took them at their word and just like freaked out and posted a video saying that I'd never say anything bad about Ukraine and whatnot. And then some other people later said, no, it's not what you said. It's the implications of what you said. And yeah, the piece kind of like shaded it, not when you were talking, but when they were narrating, they kind of shaded what you said to make it seem more pro-Russian than it actually was. But when you were talking, no, nothing that you said was particularly, it was controversial. It was unpleasant truths, right? But it wasn't like anti anything, okay? And it's just people went a little overboard. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. But what happened was that some people on Telegram, and then I confirmed this later on some of the other kind of like 4chan and other places, saying that, there were like Bitcoin assassins, man. Some dude was posting that he was offering $15,000 via Bitcoin for my head, Oh, and something else happened too. Yeah, that some Chechen leader, I want to meet this guy. Some Chechen leader also saw the video and thought it was aces. Okay, man. If a Chechen leader thinks that you're cool, I mean, those fuckers, man, they're made of hardwood, right? I mean, dude, those guys are like solid. I mean, I bet when they fuck their women, it's a miracle that those girls survive. You know what I'm saying? All hard all the time. But anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. But what really disturbed me was this notion that there were people offering real money, Bitcoin, for my head. A lot of Ukrainians were pissed off. A lot of Ukrainians were pissed off by the piece. And it was part of the reason, it was the reason rather, that I was kicked out of the Premier Palace Hotel in Kiev, right? I was, shocked about that. And that happened, when was it? On the 28th, on Monday rather. And so I was like, Okay, so that happened. That was the background for it. And that I'm anti-Ukrainian because of this piece, and that I'm evil and blah blah. Because that's the problem that we have in our current contemporary society. You try to have a nuanced view of reality because reality is always complicated. There's always stories and background and extra info, and so this notion that these guys are good and these guys are bad. Yeah, we're good guys and they're bad, and we gotta kill them because we're good. Bullshit. It's everything is nuanced, right? And of course, when you try to explain those nuances, what happens is that it's very easy to take a piece of your very long and complex analysis and say, oh, this guy thinks this. He's a good guy or he's a bad guy, as the case may be. So a lot of Ukrainians viewed the clips that I posted, which of course they picked the clips, the Russian news station picked the clips that were, of course, favorable to the Russian position and used those and seemed that I was a Putin apologist, when of course I was just trying to give an even-handed account of what was going on, but I just flew over everybody's head. So anyway, yesterday, several people actually got in touch with me and they said, dude, they are really offering money for your head. And then there was this a Telegram message or some message somewhere. Somebody clipped it. I don't know where it came from actually. Maybe Facebook. But anyway, it was somebody said that they'd gone to some random hotel near the train station looking for me. I'd never heard of the fucking hotel. I had to Google it, and come on, man, it was like a 2-star hotel by the train station, man. Do I look like that kind of motherfucker? Fuck you, man. Anyway, they'd gone there apparently. I'll take them at their word. Okay, this is a real and very obscure hotel right by the train station. And I suspect that they had gone there figuring that I would have gone there, stayed there, after having taken the train from Kiev to Kharkov, right? Anyway, and I don't know if this is true or not. I mean, all kinds of keyboard jockey bullshit is going on, right? I mean, stuff that you're like, fuck that, that's bullshit, right? So yeah, I mean, like when I heard this, I was like, okay, this might be real or this might be bullshit, but there's always that one crazy guy. There's always that one nutty guy who's going to do something really fucking insane. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hit me with a +1 if you know what I'm talking about. I just want to be just absolutely sure that you know what I'm talking about. See, the vast majority of people talking shit, they're never going to do fucking shit because they're pussies. But there's that one guy who's nuts. +1, yeah. So you fuckers understand what I'm talking about. That one guy who's fucking crazy, who's gonna do something, okay? He doesn't even care about money or anything. He's just fucking crazy, So that was part of the reason that I got rid of my Telegram chat, because I figured that, crazies would sort of like, and by the way, because of this post, this video that appeared on Russian television that went viral all over the fucking place, all of a sudden I get all of these people on my Telegram chat and they're all fucking, they hate my guts, or they're God knows who, or crazy of their own. I mean, they might be on my side, but they're fucking nuts. And my side, of course, is, um, I don't have a fucking side, man. I just look at shit and try to understand it. That's all I'm into. Anyway, these guys, yeah, I started hearing all this story, right? And this lady, I mean, this thing happened. These guys showed up at my apartment and walked into my complex, and it said I'm not sure if they actually looked at me. Okay, they could have just glanced at me and just not really connecting the pieces and just went in. It could be that. I don't know. I mean, but I'm fairly sure that they did glance in my direction. Okay, and I wasn't that far from them. I must have been, again, 10 meters from them as they were walking in. Okay, but we'll never know. And this lady, she shoves me out the door, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? And at first I'm like, what? And then I click with all this other shit, and I figure, yeah, here we have like some crazy people, but like 4 people. Who the fuck is this? Who knows? Let's get the fuck out of Dodge. Let's just you just get out first. It's better to have done something foolish unnecessarily than to just act like all tough and get the shit kicked out of you or worse, right? So I decided, okay, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. And I split and I walked out, okay, because I don't have a car here. I was in the process of actually buying a car when the invasion happened. Oh, that's not gonna happen. And I got my motorcycles, of course, but it's too fucking cold, and I actually haven't started them in a while, so their batteries are probably dead. But anyway, the point. Mm. I walk out, and there's like a vehicle outside, outside the gates, because you have to walk, I don't know, a good 40 meters to get to the actual gate for the cars, right? And outside of it is this vehicle, you know, and it's not marked, right? But there's something shady about it, right? And I just kept on walking, okay? And I kept on walking. I walked all the way to someplace else. Well, not quite, but it doesn't matter for purposes of this conversation. I got the fuck out of there. And I freaked the fuck out, right? And I called up a bunch of people. And one of the people I called, and I was so fucking lucky because you see, I left one of my cell phones um, in the apartment and it had a bunch of numbers. But thankfully, I had the number of one of my neighbors on my other phone, well, actually, this one that I'm using now. And I gotten to know this neighbor, nice guy. And this fella and this very nice person, I reached out to them and later that night. And he's like, you know, there were some guys at your door and they were banging the fuck out of it, you know? And I don't know if they got in or not, but they were really fucking serious. And I'm like, fuck. Huh? And I told him to just stay away from the fucking door, just ignore it, you know, and pretend nothing. And, you know, I'm not going to follow up on that conversation, right? And then I thought, well, you know, this is just some, you know, some random crazy guys, you know, some, you know, nationalists who just got pissed off at my video and just, you know, whatever the fuck, you know. But then I find out, yeah. Well, today I find out that there's this mayor of a city called Victor Struk, Struk, Victor, okay? Victor Struk, Struk, the mayor of Crimea. Okay, I'd never heard of this town, right? And, you know, no disrespect to the people of Crimea, but not that many people will have heard of it because it's a city with a population of 18,600 people. Mm. And this gentleman, Victor Struk, was assassinated. He was kidnapped and then shot through the heart. And his body was dumped in the middle of Crimea yesterday afternoon. And there's word coming that there are several people who've been critical or dissident who are just, you know, they're not around. They're kind of like gone. And an interior ministry official called Victor Struk, who I saw a picture of me. I can't show you the picture, but you'll just have to look and Google it up. Daily Mail has a whole thing on it, right? Victor Struk, Struk, the mayor of Crimea. And I looked up the population. It's 18,600. I mean, it's a burg. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to the lovely people of Crimea. I bet it's a lovely town. But it's a burg. It's not like fucking Kiev or Dnipropetrovsk or Odessa or some shit like that. It's just a tiny town. And so therefore, this Victor Struk, I saw a picture of him. He seems like, you know, the typical Eastern European guy, big guy, you know, drank a lot, a little bit overweight, and, you know, decent enough suit. You know, he's a minor guy, you know, and they shot this fucker. And they've shot a lot of other people. Or at least that's likely because a lot of other people, a lot of other dissidents, you know, are kind of like not around right now. And so, yeah, that was real. It wasn't paranoia. You know, the Zelensky regime decided to get rid of a bunch of people, and this interior ministry official called him a traitor who deserved what he got. Actually, let me find the actual article. I have it here. Yeah, because this Victor Struk was pro-Russian, and you do have to keep in mind that the central problem in Ukraine is that it is a ethnically mixed country. It has Ukrainians and it has Russians, and also a smattering of Hungarians and Poles. Ethnic. I mean, I'm talking ethnic, right? And the thing is, the ethnic Russians, they speak Russian, and they're persecuted for it. Yeah, they are. And the Zelensky regime has shut down at least 4 TV stations that are Russian language, and he's shut down people who are critical of him. Yeah. So whenever they tell you that Zelensky is like this democratic leader and shit, he ain't. He's a despot. He's a despot. Okay, but we'll get to him in just a second. I just want to tell you that, see, this story, I'm telling you, it's fucking outlandish, man. It's fucking funny. And I have to say, I've never been as scared as I was last night. Okay, especially after I talked to my neighbor. That's when I really just freaked the fuck out. Okay, that's when I realized that this was fucking real. You know, I mean, no fucking around. And by sheer fucking luck, I walked away from this shit. And when I read this morning about this Victor Struck, and I asked around, and some other shit was going down, people disappeared. I'm like, holy fucking shit, this was real, man. I mean, you know, you can think what you will. I figured that they were coming for me. And, you know, my neighbor was a decent enough fella, you know. He certainly didn't lie. Why the fuck would he lie? I mean, come on. You know, you don't lie about shit like that. You don't say to some, you know, neighbor of yours, you know, you just make up like, oh, some guys came looking for you. Who says that shit, right? These guys came looking for me. And that lovely woman, when I ever get back to my apartment, when I find her, I'm going to give her like a big fat kiss, and I'm going to buy her an apartment or send her out to Tahiti or some shit like that. I'm going to blow a whole boatload of fucking cash on that woman. You know, nice lady. You know, I'm not going to give the particulars, but they're all kind of like the same. They're older ladies, you know, and they're, I would guess, like 40s and 50s and perhaps older even, you know, and they rotate, you know, they have their little routines, right? And nice ladies, you know, there are like 5 of them, I think. And this one in particular, I'm gonna fucking do something big for her because she fucking deserved it, man. And you fucking super chat fuckers are gonna pay for it. So there, you know. But anyway, no, serious. I freaked the fuck out, no question. I freaked out and I got in touch with a whole bunch of people and told them this shit, you know. And like later, I'm like reading this shit, I'm like, dude, man. Yeah, what happened was that, see, I have an acquaintance. Okay, well, I have a bunch of acquaintances, but one in particular that I was able to get in touch with. And let's leave it at that. And this acquaintance put me someplace that's out of the way, in Kharkov, because at this time you cannot leave the city except by train. You can leave the city by train. I think that the Russians have left a corridor open by car. But I've made up my mind that I'm not really going to leave. Okay, I'm not going to leave. But the important thing is that my kids are safe. You know, they're gone. They're just gone. Okay, but I'm staying in Kharkov because you see, it's not safe for my kids for me to be with them now, is it? Of course not. Okay, because these fuckers are for real. I mean, they're real. Okay, I mean, snatching people off the street and then shooting them in the heart and dumping them in the middle of the fucking town that they used to be the mayor of. Dude, what the fuck? Okay. And that's the thing that I find kind of shocking. Okay, this Victor Struck fellow, right? And again, I don't mean any disrespect to him, but he was small fry. I mean, a mayor of a town of 18,000 people. You know, there are several cities with over 1 million people here, and there are 4 or 5, I think, that have over 1 million people in Ukraine. The country has 45 million people. The mayor of a town of 18,000 is, I mean, in the scheme of things, fucking trivial. Okay, and let's pause it, and because I have no evidence that these guys were looking for me except for me telling you the testimony of my neighbor. But let's pause it just for the sake of argument that everything I've told you so far is true. Why would they bother with somebody so insignificant as some fucking YouTuber? I mean, it's all good and fine for some hotel manager to kick out a guest because he doesn't like his politics. I object to that. I think it's wrong, but that's not the point. The point is we can understand that, right? But, you know, wasting some guy, some mayor, over some, he's pro-Russian when everybody in his fucking town is ethnic Russian. Come on, what the fuck is going on? It's the Zelensky regime, okay? And these guys, they were dressed like black sweater and kind of cocky-ish, but not military. They looked, but their bearing was military. They looked like military guys pretending to be civilians. That's what they looked like. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that happened yesterday. That was fucked up. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just all kinds of nutty. God damn, I hate this fucking thing that it kind of like winks out. Oh man, I have to like touch the screen every 5 minutes or 3 minutes or some shit like that. Well, I wonder if I can fix that. If I go to settings and tell it not to go to sleep, do you think that that will help? Huh? Uh, uh, Well, I'm telling you that I'm staying here. Doesn't mean I actually am. Hmm? Ha ha ha. I'm talking to the chat. Hang on. Okay, well, let's just keep on going. Yeah. So anyway, I had like a whole fucking outline. I went on this tangent, and so yeah. Okay, right. So what I was saying was that there's this YouTuber that I admire very much. That I used to admire, but I realized that his game is to punch down. He finds some just foolishness or idiocy in the internet, and he mocks it, which is fine by me. But he always mocks people who are weak, who are small. And when I realized that, he punches down. Yeah, yeah, that was not for me. See, because I can't punch down. See, I just can't constitutionally. I mean, I can only punch up, and I consistently punch up, and I know why. I'm a 54-year-old man. Just turned 54, so I know exactly why I have the motivations that I have. I can't stand the big guy who bullies me or tries to bully me. Mm? Because I grew up with a father who bullied the fuck out of me all the time. You know, I mean, since the time I was little, like little, like 2, 3 years old, my dad scared the ever living fuck out of me. I mean, he's a real fucking piece of shit. And if he's watching, I hope he fucking burns in hell. I mean, I really do. He's a fucking piece of shit. He scared me. Okay, all the time. I was scared 24/7. You know, it wasn't that he beat me. Yeah, actually, my dad only kicked the shit out of me like a couple of times. And the funny thing was that the couple of times he did kick the shit out of me, I deserved it. Okay, because it was stupid shit that I should never have done. And that was actually like not the problem. The problem was like the day to day. The problem was that he scared the fuck out of me. And sometimes he'd arrive home and basically, look, my old man could not find a way to release the frustrations of his life and his career and existence. And even though he was extremely successful, he had frustrations like we all do, but he did not know how to vent them in a way that was harmless. And so he would vent them at the people who cared about him, like myself, like his son, you know. And that venting just scared the ever living fuck out of me. I was scared all the time, all the time. And my old man was bigger than me and is a strong guy, good athlete, that kind of guy, and very smart, and I mean, everything going for him except an inability to control his temper. And he scared the fuck out of me all the time. And so what happened was that, well, several things happened because of this. I realized, number one, I could never work for anybody. Okay, I could never have anybody in authority above me because it was just constitutionally unable to. Because of this constant bullying, I just couldn't handle any kind of authority above me, right? And the other thing too was that, see, I realized that I decided, I don't know how you explain this. I made up my mind that I would never put up with anybody trying to bully me. And if I got the shit kicked out of me, fine. But it was going to cost them. If they wanted to beat me up, fine. But it's going to cost you a couple of teeth. Okay. Either literally or metaphorically. Because I'm not going to back off. Yeah. I just want to make that clear before I get into this, because Jesus Christ, it's gone like fucking an hour already, 50 fucking minutes, and I still haven't gotten into the meat of what the fuck I'm trying to say. Okay, well, what the fuck? Okay, so I'm on nobody's side. Okay, I'm not on anybody's side, and I've never been on anybody's payroll. By the way, people ask me that, or a lot of people saying that you're a Putin shill and shit like that. Well, if I'm a Putin shill, Uncle Vlad has still reneged or failed to deliver on the fucking dacha on the Black Sea. He promised me a dacha on the Black Sea with a dozen Russian beauty queens that were all going to be like big boobed and 10 feet tall, and he still hasn't delivered. So what the fuck, Uncle Vlad? Never been on anybody's payroll. I've never had sponsored videos, by the way. I've only ever gotten money from my hobby, because that's what I consider this, a hobby, from AdSense and paid subscription. And paid subscription is, of course, audience members who want to see more of my crazy ass shit, right? So yeah, I've never taken any kind of endorsement deal or anything of the sort. Never done that. Okay. And I've gotten lots of offers, for video games, VPN, all kinds of stuff. But at first I was just lazy about it, like I'll get around to it. It's not that much money. It's kind of like a hassle, and doing the videos is hard enough. I have to do like a fucking segment endorsing some fucking product I don't even use, And then later it became like, I'm not going to do it out of principle. It's not that much money. And even if it were a lot more money, it's just, there's that like greasy feel to it. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I've never been on anybody's payroll. I'm not on anybody's side. Okay. My naive wish, insofar as this current situation is concerned, this invasion that has happened, prevent needless bloodshed. That's the priority. Yeah. Because you see, in this war that we're seeing, and this bothers Ukrainians enormously, and I understand, I totally sympathize, but the fact is, the Russians are winning. They are going to win. And there is very little that the Ukrainian army, no matter how brave they might happen to be, there's very little that they can do about it. Because the Russian army, first of all, it's bigger, a lot better equipped, better led, and that's a fact. And on top of that, they have the will. The political leadership has the will to go all the way. Because from the point of view of the Russians, this war of conquest of Ukraine, because that is what it is existential. They view it as either we conquer Ukraine or we are going to be glassed by NATO. Glassed in like the nuclear warhead kind of way, glassed. And for the Russian leadership, they're like, no, we're not going to let that happen. We are not going to fall under the yoke of NATO. We are going to maintain this borderland, and we are not going to allow NATO to expand. We are not going to have a military alliance that actively says that we are their enemy that they want to destroy. No, we're not going to let that happen. This is exactly the same problem as when the Soviet Union back in 1962 put nuclear weapons in Cuba. For the United States, it was existential. And the United States has decided to go toe-to-toe with the Russians and say, fuck it, if you don't pull those fucking missiles, we're going to invade Cuba, and if you don't fucking like it, we're going to start lobbing nuclear missiles at you, and fuck you very much. That's basically what happened in '62. It was an existential crisis for the United States, and it was justified for the Americans to go all the way, and they did. And what happened with the Soviets? They realized, shit, we overplayed our hand, and they pulled out. But it cost the Americans. The Americans had to pull out their missiles from Turkey. That's something that a lot of people, conveniently forget, but that's history, and that's not important for this conversation. What's important for this conversation? See, for the Russians, it's existential, and therefore they're going to do everything necessary to win, And so when you are dealing with somebody who is cornered, who is going to do whatever it takes to win, you have to realize, okay, how do I handle this so I minimize my own losses? Because this guy is gonna die fighting. He's gonna go all the way, and it's gonna cost me enormously. And so, for the Ukrainians, they have to decide how much pain can they tolerate? And because eventually they're going to have to cry uncle, whether they like it or not. I mean, and this is not, I insist, I am not denigrating the Ukrainian armed forces. I am not belittling them in any way, much less the people. No, it's just the reality. When you have an army that's 3, 4 times bigger than your own, far better equipped, with far more expensive and sophisticated weaponry than yours, huh? You can't win. I mean, come on, man. You know, I'm 6 feet, right? I'm 54 years old, and I weigh, as of this morning, 85 kilos, right? If I go up against a guy who works out all the fucking day and he's an MMA fighter and he's my height, he's 6 feet and he's my weight, but he's just all kinds of experience. And, last week he kicked the shit out of Conor McGregor or whomever the fuck, right? And, I step in front of him, he's going to waste my fucking ass. It's inevitable, You have to know your limitations. That famous line, you've got to know your limitations. Yeah. My wish is to prevent needless bloodshed. And I don't want Ukraine to become another Syria or Libya or Iraq. And those countries were beautiful countries, all of them. And they were turned to rubble by a protracted war. A protracted war where the Americans came in, and in some cases, like Iraq, they leveled the whole fucking place. And in other cases, like Libya and Syria, they armed the rebels, and the rebels, by proxy, turned the whole country into nothing. Like in Syria, for instance, the United States armed the rebels, and those rebels just rendered the whole country just a giant shithole. Okay, and that's a fact. And I do not want that to happen to Ukraine. I do not want the empire of lies, the empire of chaos, the United States of America, and the Western allies, who are really just its little puppet regimes that it, pulls the strings on whenever it wants to. I don't want that empire of lies to create a protracted, endless civil war in Ukraine that will hurt nobody except the Ukrainian people. Simple as that. I do not want a protracted civil war. And there are all the ingredients here in Ukraine for a protracted civil war. As I explained, the population is Ukrainian and Russian. And there is everything to create the conditions for a protracted civil war where you have a foreign power, the United States, the Western alliances, call them what you will, feeding weapons to the Ukrainians, to the Ukrainian rebels, and this war just turning the entire country to rubble. That has happened before. That is the modus operandi of the United States and its allies. I don't want it to happen in Ukraine. Simple as that. I want to minimize bloodshed, and I want the country to go back to order as quickly as possible. And who the political leadership is, it doesn't really matter compared to avoiding the fate of needless bloodshed and a complete annihilation of the country by way of civil war. Who is the leader? It's Zelensky, it's Putin, it's Mr. Smith, it's who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Not if you can avoid the needless bloodshed and a protracted civil war. You see what I'm saying? I mean, this is reasonable, right? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so how to achieve my naive wish? Well, I figure that the best thing to do, taking me a fucking hour to get here, is to explain what has happened and to get people to wake up. Because you get people to wake up, to think about what's going on, and therefore, hopefully, they'll start to make a change. At least tell other people that it's not black and white. It's not that Putin evil, Ukrainians all good, or more correctly, Putin evil, Zelensky wonderful. Oh no, it's not like that at all. Putin is not, Antichrist, okay? He's a political leader, and he's got his motivations, and they're very good motivations. They're very good reasons to be embarked in this war. You can agree with them or not, but to say that they're not reasonable, that they're not actually compelling reasons to carry out this war, you're lying, because it is compelling reasons to carry out this war. You can disagree with it. That's not the issue. It's asking if it's justified, if there's a compelling purpose behind it, and there is, and that is Russia's long-term security in the face of what Russia sees, and anybody reasonable would agree, as NATO expansionist aggression. Hmm, Okay. Um, yeah. So, like I said, I love Ukraine, but I despise the Zelensky regime. Zelensky, you have to understand who he is. Okay, and this is going to be part of the introduction, but I'm going to go just into the meat of the thing because I think that would be easier. Where did I find it? Where did I put this fucking thing? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about Zelensky. Now, Zelensky, he was born in 78. He's 44 years old, and he was a very successful actor in Ukraine. He was just, he started out in theater and TV and then jumped into romantic comedies, that kind of shit. He did fairly well. And, but you have to understand that he is the puppet of an oligarch named Kolomoyskyi. Okay, you're going to have to forgive me. My pronunciation is shit, but Kolomoyskyi is a Ukrainian Israeli Cypriot oligarch. He's got 3 passports: Ukraine, Israel, and Cyprus. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second because it makes you smirk. Okay. It was Kolomoyskyi who put Zelensky in the position that he is. Because this is what happened. See, Kolomoyskyi is basically an oligarch and he lives in Switzerland. Not even here, and he's involved in all kinds of things. The guy's an engineer by trade, and he's involved in commodities and media, all kinds of, and bank, Alpha Bank. I think Alpha Bank is his. All kinds of interesting doodads and shit, right? He funds a private militia in Ukraine. Real thing. I mean, he's a real, gangster oligarch with his own private fucking militia. Yep, that's him. And his specialty, I wrote it there in my outline, that he's done this multiple times, that he will, buy something and float out a check and then declare bankruptcy. And so the person who received the payment has to take him to court, and it's like a whole hassle. And of course, the guy is going to get pennies on the dollar. He's done that like multiple times. He's kind of like basically he's a grifter, a highfalutin grifter, highfalutin thief. On a high level, but same fucking principle, right? Just more zeros in his operations. You know what I'm saying? And he funds private militias in Ukraine, and it's known for a fact, okay, not me making any shit up, that he has settled business disputes with some of his thugs, putting a gun to people's heads, literally. Mm? I know, the oligarchs in Chile, for instance, whom I know personally, right? They'll yell at you, they'll sue you, but I've never heard of any oligarch in Chile, getting some bodyguard or something to pull out a gun on somebody's head. But Ihor Kolomoyskyi has done this. Apparently more than once, okay? He's a fucking gangster. I mean, not a gangster in ooh, he's so cool. No. He's a fucking piece of shit, gangster, thief, criminal, just with a lot of zeros. Okay, see, you're a big enough thief that you become an oligarch rather than a thief. This guy has gotten into all kinds of trouble with the law, and the other oligarchs that he's friends with, Jesus Christ, they got an actual rap sheet, man. I've never been arrested once, not once. I've gotten 2 tickets in my life. Once for an illegal U-turn in '96 in LA, and once for walking my dog without a fucking leash in New York in 2000 or 2001. Yeah, that's the extent of my criminal career. This fucker is actual gangster with actual militias and shit. Okay. Oh, and by the way, he's this kind of guy. Okay. In Ukraine, it's illegal to have dual citizenship, but he has triple citizenship. You know the line he said? He said that, yes, it's illegal to have dual citizenship, but there's no law about having triple citizenship. So see, he's following the letter of the law while he just rapes the spirit of the law. He's that kind of a guy. Okay. So anyway, this guy, Ihor Kolomoyskyi, also he look him up on Wikipedia. He apparently likes to be nicknamed after some gangster in some TV show or some shit like that. He's that kind of, vulgar, pathetic, ignorant, uncultured oligarch who's basically a thief and a criminal. That's the kind of guy he is. Okay. So this guy, he is on Putin's shit list for defrauding a couple of Russian oligarchs. But my thing is, there's no honor among thieves, right? So fuck that. Who gives a shit? But the other thing that pisses off Putin, right, is that Kolomoyskyi, is very anti-Russian. And as I'm going to be discussing a little bit, you have to understand that Putin is essentially an ethnic nationalist. That's the real issue, okay? And so what's going on here is that Kolomoyskyi, is on Putin's shit list, and Kolomoyskyi is the guy behind Zelensky, and I'm going to explain how it happened. Now, first of all, you have to understand that Kolomoyskyi funds terrorism. I mean, he funds it outright. No fucking around. No, like, that kind of thing that where the FBI claims some bullshit about funding terrorism in order to get the collar on some random guy who's just really like an accountant or some shit like that. No, this guy actually funds terrorism. He has funded the Azov Battalion. These are real neo-Nazis, okay? And the thing is, see, I saw them when the war broke out. I saw them on Kreshchatyk Avenue in the middle of Kiev. They had a stand and everything, and a bunch of photographers. And I decided, it's not that I decided, it didn't occur to me to film them. And I thought, I'll film them later. I never got around to it, which is stupid, the way things are. But there are multiple sources online of like reputable mainstream media that can show you the Azov Battalion, with a little table there trying to recruit people. The Azov Battalion are basically neo-Nazis. I mean, like real neo-Nazis, not like pretend neo-Nazis, or not like the neo-Nazis when, like the Democrats say that Tim Pool is a neo-Nazi. No. I'm talking about real neo-Nazis, okay? The Azov Battalion is real neo-Nazis, and they operate in the Donbass. The Donbass is Lugansk and Donetsk regions, right? And here's the weird thing. See, he funds neo-Nazis in Ukraine, even though he's Jewish, which is just weird, man. It's just really fucking weird. But I figure that, if I'm thinking from his point of view, he's figuring, muscle is muscle, right? I don't know what he's thinking, but this is the reality of it. And it's not me saying that he funds the Azov Battalion and his own private militia and that he funds neo-Nazis. No. This is known, okay? This is like known by multiple people, the State Department. He's on the State Department's shit list and all kinds of problems, right? And so Kolomoyskyi is also one of those guys who's like really, really smart. I mean, you can tell. I mean, regardless of whether, whatever you think of it on a moral level, see, a guy who's a billionaire in whatever, he's smart, he's clever, he's cunning, okay? He might be uncultured and uncouth and just vulgar and just and immoral and all kinds of evilness to him, right? But that doesn't mean that he's stupid. And this guy is not stupid, okay? He's very smart. But of course, one of the problems of being very smart is a lot of times you are very vain and very foolish. And you think that you have certain power and certain ability that you, in fact, do not have. And Kolomoyskyi seems to have thought that he was better than he actually was. He ran for president of Ukraine in 2014. Yeah, and he scored miserably, okay? I mean, he spent a boatload of cash and got like 3% of the vote. It was trivial, right? And so this was in 2014. And this is important because right after that, the very next year, you know what he did? He hired Zelensky, the current president of Ukraine, who was, as I said, a movie star, a romantic comedy kind of guy. And he hired him to do this show called Servant of the People, okay? Now, this show, Servant of the People, people say that it was like, the West Wing. No, that's not quite true. It was a comedy. It was a comedy, and he was president. And the thing is, see, in the show, this man, I think he was a teacher on the show. I never watched an episode of it. It's not really important to watch it. It's just to know the pitch of it. He was like a teacher or something like that, and he did a viral video about corruption in Ukraine. He was sick of corruption in Ukraine, right? This guy, Kolomoyskyi, is the most corrupt motherfucker in the whole fucking country. And he does a show. He funds the show and hires Zelensky, or his people hire Zelensky, to do this show that's anti-corruption. And here's the thing. Kolomoyskyi is the majority owner of an outfit called 1+1 Media. It's got TV stations and shit like that. It's a big player in Ukraine, right? It's the equivalent of, I don't know, Paramount or something like that, or Sony, or perhaps even Disney. It's like a big deal here in Ukraine. And so he astroturfed this show. I mean, really pushed it really, really fucking hard, right? And it became popular, of course, astroturf popular, not organically popular. Okay, and so Kolomoyskyi pushed the show, and get this, servant of the people, right? And in 2018-19, they formed a party called Servant of the People. Kolomoyskyi did, you know? Kolomoyskyi is this kind of guy. See, there was some Jewish organization that he wanted to be president of, right? And he tried to get in, you know, he paid off the right people, big contributions, that kind of shit, to be a chair of this Jewish organization. And finally, the people there were like, fuck you, we don't like you because you're a fucking criminal and blah, 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 because he is, right? And he was like, okay, fuck you back. He left and created his own Jewish group. All this shit is in Wikipedia, okay? Like, again, I'm not making this shit up, but this is real. It's sordid and pathetic, but real. So he made his own fucking Jewish group and funded it lavishly, and it became like the dominant one, okay? So anyway, Kolomoyskyi, Kolomoyskyi, I think is how it's, I don't even know how to pronounce his fucking name, man, okay? Anyway, people are scared of him. People are real fucking scared of him. Yeah, because he's got real muscle. I mean, like physical muscle, like, you know, gangster shit, okay? And you look at him in pictures and he seems like, you know, like a college professor or some shit like that. But the fucker, he's a piece of shit. Mhm. Okay, so this cocksucker, you know, pushes Zelensky in this show, Servant of the People, right? And Servant of the People gets big numbers because, of course, 1+1 Media is pushing it all kinds of ways. And also the other businesses that this guy has, you know, they push it in ways subtle and not so subtle. And it becomes like a hit. Okay, fine. You know, he astroturfed himself a hit. This happens all the time, you know. I mean, in the West and whatnot. But then immediately after, he created this party, Kolomoyskyi, but of course with Zelensky as the figurehead. And he created this political party called Servant of the People. And all of a sudden, he went from being a comedian, playing a president, into an actual presidential fucking candidate, man. I mean, come on, man. Well, then again, we had the fucking Donald Trump in the United States, man. What the fuck was that? You know, a reality TV show guy becomes president? Actual president, you know? I mean, the only thing weirder would have been if, like, Martin Sheen had become president, you know? Some people actually floated the idea of Martin Sheen becoming, you know, a candidate for the Democratic Party, man. It's just, we are living in a bizarro world. You know, at some point in time, we split off from the main timeline and we're in this weird, bizarro clown world timeline. You know, that's my thinking, you know? Hit me with a clown world in the comment section if you agree. If you think that this is a clown world, hit clown world, yeah, in the chat, because that's what I think, man. It's just too fucking bizarre. You know, a couple of clowns as presidents of these countries, man. Fuck that. Okay. So anyway, well, you're in Kharkiv. Good for you. Don't get shot and don't get blown up. Okay. We're all trying to, you know, avoid those two fates. Yeah, but anyway, so this guy, he's got his little militias. He's funding the Azov Battalion, which, as I said, they're a real piece of shit. They're anti-Russian, anti-ethnic Russian. I mean, they're xenophobic. Okay, bottom line. Now I know this for a fact that the Russians in the Donbass area, you know, the people leading the People's Republics, you know, they're not squeaky clean people. And the Azov people, they're not squeaky clean people either. Okay. I mean, like I said, you know, among thugs, among thieves, things can get really fucking dicey. You don't want to get between them, okay? But that's the situation we find ourselves in. Anyway, yeah, okay. So Zelensky won on this promise in 2019, in March of 2019, of ending corruption, which was like the pitch from the show. The whole show from 2015 to 2019 was about him, you know, ranting and raving about the corruption in Ukraine in this viral video and within the universe of the show. And because of this, he becomes president and he fights corruption as president. And you know, the whole show is about that and about him as president trying to join the European Union and him as president in the TV show trying to join NATO. You can't make this shit up. This is real, man. They basically test marketed the president on this TV show, and when it seemed like it would work, they actually made a party and floated this fucker as the candidate. And the thing is, see, what's really funny is that, see, he was, before becoming president, Zelensky was very much opposed to silencing Russian language speakers, because you see, since Ukraine is a multi-ethnic republic, and it has two dominant ethnic groups with two different languages, Ukrainian and Russian. For those of you who don't know, the difference between the two is sort of like I'm roughly speaking, between like Spanish and Portuguese. They understand each other, but they're two separate languages, right? And ethnically, I mean, again, no disrespect, but I can't tell the fucking difference between a fucking Russian and a fucking Ukrainian. They look all the same to me, you know? Like for a black guy, all white people look the same. Yeah, these Ukrainians and Russians, I can't tell the fucking difference. Not to save my life. I married one, you know? And unfortunately, she's half Ukrainian and half Russian. So, you know, fucked. You know, anyway, you know, so here we are as Zelensky as president, and of course he's pushing for, you know, end of corruption and free and open society and United Nations rah 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 and NATO rah rah rah. You know, he's pushing that bullshit, right? Now, what's really important is to understand that what's this fucker's name? Kolomoyskyi and Zelensky, yeah, they're clearly in contact with the U.S. State Department. I mean, like really close. Okay. Because what happens, and we have to call a spade, or call a spade a fucking shovel, as you see fit. Well, you see, the people leading the State Department right now, and Zelensky and Kolomoyskyi, people like Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State who's in charge of Eastern Europe, is a very nasty woman, and who engineered the 2014 coup d'etat in Ukraine, the so-called Color Revolution. And Wendy Sherman, the principal negotiator for the State Department, and he was a fucking moron, and Anthony Blinken and Zelensky and Kolomoyskyi, well, they're all co-religionists now, aren't they? And it's not clear that whether their interests really align with the interests of the people that they are supposed to represent. That's not clear at all. That's a fact. And it's known that these five people have a lot of back-channel communications. A lot of back-channel communication, right? And Kolomoyskyi is a fucking oligarch living in fucking Switzerland. And he's pulling the strings in fucking Ukraine. In fact, he designed and designated all the people in Zelensky's cabinet because Zelensky is a fucking actor, okay? And I mean this in a disrespectful way. You know, the other times when I say, I mean no disrespect, you know, when I pussy out like that and I'm trying to be nice to everybody. But in this case, see, Zelensky is a fucking puppet. He's a fucking actor. He has been hired to play a role. He doesn't decide fucking shit. The people who decide shit are people like Igor Kolomoyskyi and his very good friends in Washington, Victoria Nuland, and Wendy Sherman, and Anthony Blinken. Those are the people who rule Ukraine. And to you who are Ukrainian citizens, who are either ethnic Russian or ethnic Ukrainian, and who are watching me now, I am here to tell you who your real rulers are. They are not your elected representatives. They are not the people who are in the Duma. No. They are foreign bureaucrats. They're the ones who run your country. And they're the ones who created the conditions so that the Russians had no other choice. They had no other choice but to invade Ukraine because of the decisions that a oligarch with 3 passports and 3 Washington bureaucrats decided. This is because of these people that we have this fucking war. It's as simple as that. And you want to call me all kinds of names. You want to call me bigoted, anti-Semitic. That's the first one that has to come, right? Oh yeah, you know, Gonzalo Lira, he's anti-Semitic. You know, that kind of charge is the typical charge made by people who know that they have no argument. You know, why would I call somebody bigoted if I can argue on the merits, on the facts? Fuck you. You say that I'm bigoted or something like that because you want to throw shit at me so I don't speak my mind? Fuck you. Hmm? I'm telling you how it is. And you who are Ukrainian, Ukrainian with a Ukrainian passport, whether ethnic Russian or ethnic Ukrainian or ethnic Hungarian or ethnic Polish, you are being led by people who do not care for you and who do not care if you die. They do not care if you die, and they get a lot of money and a lot of power as they step over your corpse or the corpse of your children. And that's the truth. These people, this grifter thief Kolomoyskyi and his puppet Zelensky, that he astroturfed into the presidency, these fucking people don't care about you. And they don't give a shit if you die. And that's why they are encouraging you to die, as I'm going to explain right the fuck now. You are Ukrainian. You care about your country, your homeland. You want to live free, live as prosperously as you possibly can. You want to watch your children grow up, as I do. I have Ukrainian children, motherfucker. Of course I want them to grow happy and healthy. But you have to understand who is creating the conditions that threatens their future. It's not the Russians. The Russians invaded, as I'm going to explain, and they invaded, okay? And Rusky bros, don't give me this shit about police operation or special operation. No, it was an invasion. But it's understandable for what these people, Kolomoyskyi and his little gremlins in Washington, Victoria Nuland, and Wendy Sherman and Anthony Blinken, they engineered this shit, okay? And I'm telling you, Ukrainian bros, Yuki bros, dude, the West doesn't give a fuck about you. The West deliberately wants Ukraine turned into rubble because it will serve their purposes, as I'm going to explain now. But I mean, please, please don't fall into this fucking trap of saying the Russians are fucking evil. And no, the Russians, they're not the nicest people in the fucking world. Nobody's saying otherwise. And Putin, he's a mean motherfucker. You know, and by the way, let's all be fucking grown-ups, okay? People in power, in any level of power, they didn't get there by being fucking nice, okay? Nobody gets the big chair by being fucking nice. You get there because you're tougher and meaner and a bigger son of a bitch than the other guy. And if that means that you do have to do things that, are distasteful, but will get you the big chair, you'll do them. That's what separates it's not even the boys from the men, it's the leaders from the also-rans. The also-rans have scruples and like, oh, I feel a little squeamish, and they get run over by the guys who are like, fuck you, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get power. Putin, Biden, Johnson, Macron, all these. I mean, Macron's a fucking twink, man. He literally sucked Rothschild cock to get his job, okay? I mean, yeah, these fuckers will do whatever it takes to get what they want. If it means sucking cock or killing a few people along the way, they'll fucking do it. And they're not going to think twice about it. Because that kind of guy who becomes leader of any country, that's the kind of guy he is. So let's not be naive and let's not be, Okay, so anyway, that rant over. Let's move on. How can I say that Zelensky is undemocratic? Well, very simple. See, Zelensky has shut down a bunch of Russian television stations, even though, as I said before he became president, he was opposed to any kind of limitation on Russian content because there was this push by the Kiev government to ban Russian entertainment, and Zelensky was all against that before he was president. But when he became president, he was in favor of shutting down Russian TV stations because, what's his name, Kolomoyskyi is essentially anti-Russian. That's the whole point of the Azov battalion. It's anti-Russian, okay? And the neo-Nazis, they're anti-Russian. They're just seriously anti-Russian. That's the whole point of the whole thing. Because they have an ancient ethnic hatred for Russia. All these people I mentioned, the three bureaucrats in Washington, and Zelensky and his puppet master, his puppeteer, Kolomoyskyi, see? They have this ancient ethnic hatred for Russia. I mean, that burns with I don't quite understand it myself, okay? I mean, I really don't, but, I'm not a core religionist of that particular group, so I have no idea. Okay, I'm fucking Roman Catholic, uncircumcised motherfucker. I have no fucking idea of that shit. I can tell you why I hate Argentines. Yeah, because I'm fucking from fucking Chilean. Yeah, and fuck those Argentines and those Peruvians. Hey, bitches, we conquered you. Yeah, maybe we'll do it again if we feel like it. Sorry, I don't really mean it. Peru bros are all right. Great food, great women. Anyway, the point. They hate Russia with a passion. Okay, and Zelensky, he's shut down a bunch of TV stations. He's persecuted and jailed journalists. The word is that he's had them assassinated. Not fucking kidding. Okay, not kidding. And he's persecuted political opponents. He's fucking persecuted the former president Poroshenko. And right now, between now and the next election, he's trying to wipe out any viable political candidate who could oppose him. Yeah. Reminds me of Joe Biden. Anyway, the point. Zelensky is kind of like a piece of shit. Okay. And here's the interesting thing, though. A lot of these persecutions, it's not clear, crystal clear, whether it's over politics or over money. I mean, if it were over politics, okay, fine. But over money, well, that's what a thief would think, to use the power of the state to shore up his money bags. A thief would think that way. Yeah, and so anyway, yeah, and the Victor Struck thing. I'm not gonna lie. When I heard the story of Victor Struck, the mayor of this little town, Kremina, I was like, dude, man, that's just fucking wrong. I saw a picture of the guy. You can tell what kind of like glad-handing politico, right? He's got a wife, kind of chubby, a couple of chubby kids, and he's probably got some, sweet little honey on the side, right? And he's probably basically a decent guy, okay? He's probably like a hardworking guy and wants to do the best he can for his little town, right? And his little town is mostly Russian because it's in Luhansk, right? And this poor fucker gets kidnapped and shot right through the heart, okay? And like I said, there's the words coming around, and it's on Twitter if you look for it, right? But I don't speak Cyrillic, so I don't quite know who exactly. It takes me so goddamn long to translate it onto Google Translate. Oh, fuck it, it'll come out soon enough. But apparently yesterday was like the day of, the day of the long knives kind of thing. Yeah. And it looks like I might have been one of those guys, My life is like one big adventure, man. What the fuck, So anyway, so Zelensky has persecuted political opponents. He's shut down TV stations that are opposed to him and are Russian language, are pro-Russian, right? His own Ministry of the Interior, one of the bureaucrats, was saying what a great thing it was that Victor Struck was dead. Literally, like I said, go look at the Daily Mail post. You don't have to take my word for it. Okay, it's real. And all these persecutions are on Zelensky. But Zelensky, like I said, he's just the puppet. The puppeteer is this guy Kolomoyskyi. He's the guy. He's the guy behind the curtain. The guy who wanted to be president and failed in 2014, failed miserably and embarrassingly. And so he went and built himself his own president, and he runs it. And I can't do it on the stream because I'm doing it on the phone. But why don't you look up the picture of the first negotiation between Russia and Ukraine about a ceasefire, okay? Now, you're going to see on the left hand of that picture, you're going to see a bunch of white guys, kind of scrawny, kind of older, with thinning gray hair, in very nice suits. See, I was talking to a friend of mine, Dr. Benway. Benway is when I used to do my podcast with him. I miss those podcasts. They were great. And Benway's doing fine, by the way. Anyway, we were talking about it. And Benway and I went to the same kind of school. I went to Dartmouth, Ivy League. He went to University of Chicago, which is not the Ivy League. It's one of those little schools out in flyover country. But anyway, he's a corporate guy. Okay. And I was raised to be a corporate guy, but, issues on the road, I never became one. But the point, we were talking about it, and we were looking at that picture. Because like I said, on the one hand, on the left-hand side, you see the Russian delegation, and there are these very serious guys. Guys like us, you know, raised in that class and that background, we look at a man like the ones in the picture, and we're like, oh yeah, we know who those guys are. Those guys are those quiet, you know, slight men who wield enormous power, okay? They're those quiet gray men who run shit. And they're very educated, extremely capable, extremely hardworking, extremely shrewd. And they are men who are used to leading and commanding, and they know what the fuck they're doing, okay? And on the right-hand side was the Ukrainian side. And none of them wore a suit, and one of them wore a black baseball cap. They looked like fucking thugs because that's what they were. They were fucking thugs. And what was interesting was that on the left-hand side, the Russian delegation, they were just men, you know, with their arms on the table, you know, and you could see their beautiful cufflinks and their nice suits, and they looked, yeah. And on the other hand, you saw men with, you know, cell phones on the table. That's weird, you know, on a negotiation like that. You have your cell phone right out on the table. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they're letting somebody else listen in on the negotiation, which means, of course, that those men who are at the negotiating table have no authority, no real authority. It's the people on the telephone, people like Kolomoyskyi, whose name I'll never remember and always screw up the pronunciation, but you know who he is, Igor Kolomoyskyi, or Victoria Nuland back in Washington, or Wendy Sherman, or Anthony Blinken. It's not those thugs at the table. They don't have any fucking power at all. And you know why they picked thugs to be at the table? To intimidate the guys in the nice suits. See? Because that's how thugs think. The Ukrainian government is run by a thug, and it's filled with thugs. Yeah, no, that's a fact. And they're the ones negotiating. Okay, I mean, like, how can I put it? See, clothes make the man. That's a truism. You know, people don't like to hear it, but it's the truth. You know, when I show up in like t-shirts and jeans and a baseball cap and unshaven, right, I look like a semi-bum. And so people think, oh, he's like a semi-bum, or maybe he is a bum, right? But when I break out my Salvador suit, Huntsman, by the way, and I look, you know, nice haircut, clean shaven, you know, yeah, looking good. Yeah, they treat me like a completely different individual because I am a completely different individual. What I'm projecting out into the world is a reflection of who I am. Those guys on the right-hand side of that picture, in their black sweaters, and their look like thuggish, they are thugs. That's why they're dressed as thugs. See? And they were there to physically intimidate the Russian delegation, which is kind of fucking funny. Because those old gray men, I've known a few of those fuckers, right? And I'm related to a few of those, right? Yeah, they might look slight and stuff, but they're tough as nails. They're not going to be intimidated by some thug. Why aren't they going to be intimidated? Because they could, you know, crook a finger and 20 of their own thugs show up and kick the fuck out of you. That's why, you know? Yeah, but anyway, you know, it's the thug mentality of the Ukrainian leadership, of the Zelensky regime. The Zelensky regime that is really led by Kolomoyskyi. Look him up. I can't get over the Victor Strug murder. I can't. I mean, what's interesting is that, you know, yesterday I was freaking out when this shit went down. I was really scared the fuck out of me. Because at first I thought that the lady might be a little bit nuts. I mean, she was like really shoving me out the door. And then when I saw that black vehicle, I was like, oh, this, because it just, you know, it just reeked of like, by the way, it was the only fucking car there. That's the other detail I forgot to mention, of course. See, it was the only fucking car in that area beyond the gate of my building. And it was a fairly large area where usually there are a lot of cars, but right now, nothing. They're all gone, okay? And I'm like, fuck. And the driver is like, he's looking right at me. That was a funny thing. The driver, yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, I hadn't thought about it until right now. Yeah, he was looking right at me, like, who's this guy? And I just kept on walking, I sort of like glanced and just kept on my way as if I knew where I was going. And I looked the same, man. See, and the point of the fucking orange cap, man, is that, see, it was the only fucking cap I took with me to Kiev, right? I've got like a bunch of different of these 47 caps in my office, right? But it was the only one I took to Kiev, and then the war started, and I haven't had access to my office, so it's the only one I've been using, man, right? And so in all the videos I've done, I've got the orange cap, right? And this fucker was looking right at me. Dude, man, what? It was fucking blind luck. It was like blind fucking luck. It reminds me of the story in 3 Days of the Condor, where something similar happens to the Robert Redford character. That was a pretty good movie. But anyway, um, yeah, and when I left and saw the van, that freaked me out. And then later, when I got to the apartment of this acquaintance, um, I was sort of like, what's going on? And I called up my neighbor, and that must have been like a couple of hours later. It actually took me a while for it to occur to me to call up my neighbor, because I was like, what's going on? And I told this acquaintance, and my acquaintance was like, stay here, I mean, if the lady, at the building says banderista, these fuckers are scary, stay here and see what happens. And it took me, actually, I called this neighbor like around 8:30, you know? It was just dumb luck that I had it on my fucking cell phone, on this phone that I'm talking to you now. Because my other cell phone, like I said, I left at the apartment. It says like a bunch of fucking numbers. That's a fucking hassle. But anyway, um, the point is that it was only dumb luck that I had in this one, because one time he was, this acquaintance was helping me out with some little thing of the, building, and I said, oh, well, let me get your number, and I popped it in, and that's how I had it. So I called him up, and he told me these guys are like banging on your door. What the fuck, man? So it was real. And then this morning, last night I knew it was real, and this morning with the news of Victor Struck, it's like real. See, that's the thing that I find. Yeah, yeah. Um, okay. So let's talk about this Zelensky guy. Okay. Um, uh, See, that's why it's not smart to start like, considering, the bad things that you get involved in. That you start when you start taking shit seriously and thinking about it, all of a sudden, it starts weighing on you. It starts weighing on you, and starts like, freaking you the fuck out. Mhm. Yeah. I was like texting somebody. Um, uh, and I was telling her that, yeah, I was scared, but it was like one of the more exciting things of my life, And it was, sure, it's kind of exciting, right? But then when you actually start to think about it, you're like, it's not fucking funny. It's fucking scary, you know? And how you can become a target for somebody who actually wants you dead over something that you said. See, because I understand, like, if you do something to somebody else and they don't like it and they try to kill you for it, okay, whatsoever that may be, I don't know, you killed their puppy, like in fucking John Wick or some shit like that. And John Wick goes berserker mode because of the fucking puppy. Well, is it a good reason to kill all those fucking people? No, but at least it's a fucking reason, it's motivated. But to kill somebody over words that they have said, and you start to realize that, see, Victor Struck being assassinated for being pro-Russian is the same as, some guy being canceled because of a fucking tweet. It's no different, It's just a sliding scale, okay? Or in my case, some thugs potentially wanting to kill me. I think that they wanted to kill me, or at least beat the ever-living fuck out of me. I mean, I don't know if they wanted to kill me outright, but then again, as a foreign national, it would have been a whole fucking mess, right? Maybe they just wanted to kick the ever-living shit out of me. I mean, like, really go to town. Either way, it would not have been pleasant, right? But see, that desire to beat the shit out of me over something I said, and canceling something, or somebody rather, over some tweet. It's the same fucking thing. It's a sliding scale, you know. I told you at the beginning of this fucking thing that I was frazzled as all get out, and that it was going to be all over the fucking place. And so you were warned, okay? So, yeah. Um, hang on a second. Okay, let me go back a little, because instead of continuing on with Zelensky, who really infuriates me, by the way, I mean, real piece of shit, for the reasons I've explained. And he's a puppet, but at the same time, he's a piece of shit because he knows what role he's playing, and it's just despicable. But anyway, let's move back a little bit, okay? So since the war started a week ago today, as a matter of fact, we are on the 8th day of the war, okay? The Ukrainians are winning the PR war, no question. Everybody loves the Ukrainians, and Zelensky and Yukis are good, and Putin bad, and all kinds of shit like that, and all kinds of sanctions, and all kinds of stupid anti-Russian sanctions. Some like the Special Olympics. I think that that's the thing that really bothers me. Special Olympics, as you know, is for handicapped people who might have lost a limb or two, or are paralyzed or something like that, or people who have, mental deficiencies of whatever sort. A lot of people who have Down syndrome, who are in the Special Olympics. Now, I myself do not know anyone with Down syndrome. Okay, not personally, at any rate, and no family member of the sort or anything like that. But I've always been extremely sympathetic to them. To children with Down syndrome, or young adults or adults with Down syndrome. They have a shortened life, and it's very sad, and they're so happy. And because of the Down syndrome, they tend to suffer from light mental retardation. Mhm. And, I always like them for some reason. I can't quite explain why. There's something about them that just brings out the tenderheartedness part of me. And I think to myself that, the Special Olympics decided that no Russian or Belarusian athlete would be allowed in the Special Olympics. And I thought to myself, how cruel, you know? The people in the Special Olympics who are like paraplegic or missing a limb or whatnot, but who have all their senses, will understand it. I mean, they're not going to like it, but they'll understand it. But the competitors who have Down syndrome, many of them will not have a clue what's going on. And they'll be like relentlessly repeating, but what did I do? Because I've noticed that a lot of times with mentally retarded people, be it with Down syndrome or just or like normal mental retardation, that many times, because they are slower than normal people, they assume that whatever befalls them is their fault because they're not fast enough, right? And so they'll say, but what did I do? And it just breaks my heart. And I can imagine all of these, Down syndrome athletes saying, what did I do? What did I do? How come I can't compete? I mean, they'll say it in Russian, of course, and they'll say it to their parents or their coach or whomever, and they'll be crying because, of course, they want to compete. Of course, because they've been preparing and working so hard. And so, how cruel to do such a thing. Just a virtue signal, just to show off that you're like on the team, That doesn't speak of confidence now, does it? It speaks of desperation, to do something so cruel to people like that. I mean, like, it's cruel to all of the Russian and Belarusian athletes, irrespective of whether you agree with Putin or not. I mean, come on, you got to agree that it is cruel and unusual, to do that. And then there's the story of how they wouldn't, some cat competition or some shit like that, some random crap that I saw on Twitter or something, saying that they were going to ban Russian cats. It's like, what the fuck is that? Dude, come on. Russian cats? You're going to persecute Russian cats? Huh? What the fuck now? You're going to change the name of, Russian dressing to, I don't know, French dressing or Tahitian dressing? What the fuck, man? This is just stupid at this point. But it's like the whole fucking culture has gone from like COVID hysteria to Russia hysteria. you know? And the Russia hysteria has been primed for a number of years with the whole Russiagate bullshit, at least back in the States, right? And how, you know, the Russiagate is like, you know, the Russians did it insofar as fucking up Hillary Clinton's chances at being president, you know? Like, she fucked it up on her own, but no, Russia, Russia, Russia. You know, Rachel Maddow has made a career out of blaming Russia for shit. You know what I mean? So anyway, a lot of sanctions, they're just bizarre. But anyway, the Ukrainians are winning the PR war, no question. But see, the Russians are winning the actual war. And between those two, only one actually counts. Mm. Yeah, because the Russians, they wiped out the Ukrainian Navy in the first day, you know, and they wiped out the bulk of the Ukrainian Air Force. There is no such fucker as the Ghost of Kiev. That's made up. Or actually, no, his name is Sam Hyde. Yeah, he's the Ghost of Kiev. Come on, man. I mean, when you heard the story for the first time, you said like 6 aircraft shot down in the first day. You're like, come on, man. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the 13 who were killed after saying, fuck you, Russian ship. And they were all alive. And they weren't even 13, they were 82. Okay. And here comes the big problem. The big problem. And it's important that you understand this. The Russian army is about, the Ukrainian army, my mistake. The Ukrainian army is about to capture between, and the numbers are very dicey, and I'll explain why in a minute, between 45,000 and 100,000 soldiers in eastern Ukraine. Yeah. See, this was known from before the war. This has been known for years. See, the Russians have perfected this tactic called the cauldron, and it's very, very simple. What they do is that they launch an offensive, usually in the shape of a slight V, like that, against an enemy force, right? This is the enemy force. And so they launch this attack, you know, and they push and then they pull back a little bit. They push and then pull back some more. And they actually cede ground, okay? I mean, once they come into contact with the enemy, they hit it hard and then they start to pull back. And the enemy is lulled into a sense of advancement, and they start advancing. And on the sides, on the flank, the Russians do a twin flanking maneuver and link up like a cauldron, okay? And so the enemy army is bottled up, see? From the two flanking sides and the two armies that are pushing. Sometimes they'll like shoot like lesser flanking from both sides, but just to box everything in and keep it all tidy. And they do that consistently. It's their go-to move. And because of that, what they're doing in eastern Ukraine, numbers are contradictory. Some say it's between 45,000 and 60,000. Others say it's between 80,000 and 100,000. Irrespective, even if it's lowball 45, even if it's like say 30,000, okay? Ukrainian army is 250,000 strong, okay? Those are regular, okay? Regular army, not reservists, not any shit like that. Or actually, I'm not sure, it doesn't matter. See, 30,000, and that's the extreme low end. I mean, that's actually below the lowest estimate, but 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers captured, that's curtains. That's it, you're done, okay? Because you're gonna be losing, because these fighters, this army, these are the fighters, okay? An army is composed like a whole series of different kinds of personnel. You got, you know, the drivers, you know, and tank commanders, of course, but you got like the drivers who drive the trucks that carry equipment and supplies and shit like that. You got administrative people, yeah, all kinds of people, medical staff, all that. But, you know, the actual fighters, you know, there are not that many of them. But here, this encirclement in the cauldron maneuver, they're basically going to pick up minimum 30,000 of their prime fighters. That's the end of the Ukrainian army. They're not going to be able to fight. What's going to happen is that they're going to be encircled. And depending on what the leadership, the political and the military leadership decide, those soldiers who are caught up in this cauldron, one or two things are going to happen to them. Either they're going to surrender and be treated as prisoners of war, and they will be demilitarized, and they will be held in prisoner of war camps, which are just like basically barracks with barbed wire around them, you know, and they'll be demilitarized and they'll be looked after until the political negotiation is over. That's one possibility, which is, from my point of view, the best possibility, because you don't die, okay? That's one possibility. The other possibility is that the political leadership tells the military leadership of Ukraine to fight to the death. And see, in this maneuver that I've described, See, fighting to the death is suicide. I mean, you can't win. Not in that kind of maneuver. And like I explained before, see, the Russians, they're going whole hog on this shit. Okay? This is existential for them. So they will throw whatever it takes. And if they have to wipe out all 30,000 or 45,000 or fucking 100,000, as some estimates claim they are, because nobody's quite sure. For obvious reasons, nobody really wants to come up with the actual figure. The Ukrainian government doesn't want to say how many they actually have, right? But that's not important. The point is, we're talking in the 5 figures in terms of soldiers, in the mid to high 5 figures. That's a lot of fucking soldiers. What, do we want to see them all die? For nothing? Because it will be for nothing. Because it will be suicide. Because they will die, and the Russian army will not be stopped. Because they're bigger. They're just more men. And like I said before, they're better led on a political level and a military level, and better equipped. Yeah. The Russians are winning. And all this talk that's going on in the West, that the Russians have bad weaponry and bad training, and I'm like, dude, man, come on. See, you're invading some country. What, you're gonna send out your best troops with your best equipment? Of course not. You ever heard the word cannon fodder? Oh, sorry, it's 2 words. Cannon fodder. Okay? It's an ugly concept, but it's a truism in the military. When you launch an offensive, you don't send your best troops. You send your 2nd-tier troops and your 2nd-tier or 3rd-tier equipment. The shit that, you got lying around and you want to get rid of, well, this is a perfect chance to get rid of it, right? You throw it against the enemy's defenses and see what happens, okay? And the enemy is, going to see this lousy equipment, and they're going to use whatever it takes to stop it, because that's what defenses do. And of course, the attacker will realize, oh, okay, this is how they defend. Oh, and so these are the weaknesses. Oh, so let's exploit them with our really El Primo stuff that we'll bring along shortly. It's basically what's going on, okay? And so in the West, they keep saying that they got lousy equipment and all kinds of stuff. And they keep saying stuff like that the Russians are not supplied enough, that they're running out of food, they're dying, and all kinds of shit. They're running out of gas, this, that. It's just copium. Copium, but to the max. I mean, it's like they took the gas mask of copium and just snorted. That copium feels good. Oh, it hurts the lungs, man, but it's good, man. Strong copium. Actually, I was, not really kidding about the coffee, man. I actually did something to myself, man. That's fucking funny. Yeah. Anyway, about this situation, I actually worry about it. I'm not kidding around. I'm dead serious. See, these soldiers, these fighters, they're going to be kids, in their late teens into their early 30s. They're going to be very capable men. Okay, extremely capable men. Frontline fighters, they're not pussies. They're guys who matter. Okay? And these guys who've been caught in what is turning out to be this trap, because these battles, by the way, in the West, after 2 days, people are saying, oh, Putin has failed. He hasn't captured Ukraine. And I'm like, dude, man, it's a huge fucking country. Because, see, all this shit, the military shit, it happens like in slow motion. But it has like that certain inevitability of slow motion. You've seen those slow motion clips, right? Of some guy like doing some skateboarding trick, right? And he fails, and he fails badly. Like, and he tries to like hop on the skateboard and go down the rails, but then his skateboard slips out from under his feet. And, the railing is like this, and he starts going like this. Oh, and it's all in slow motion, and you can see it, and you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. It just clicks, like that, right? Because like normal speed, it's like, oh, boink, oh, my balls, right? But when it's slow motion, it's like more dramatic and worse and more horrifying, right? Because it's like slowly crashing and crushing his nuts on the fucking metal thing, right? Yeah, that's kind of like military, that's like basically like warfare. Okay, mechanized warfare, industrial warfare, the kind of warfare that we're experiencing now. It's like slow motion. And they're going to capture this huge army. They're going to capture it or they're going to annihilate it. And it's going to be all these men dead for nothing. Okay, because either way, that army is toast. Okay, and so my thinking is that the political leadership should say, okay, You rescues, you're going to win. Okay? I'm not going to throw away the flower of my country for nothing. I'm not going to allow, between 45,000 and 100,000 soldiers, to die needlessly. I'm not going to let that happen. They matter more than, my political position. That's what a normal political leader would do. But that's not what the Zelensky regime is acting like it's going to do. On the contrary, they seem perfectly willing to throw away the lives of tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, the flower of Ukraine, throw it away so that they can maintain something, some power, or get some money. You see what I'm saying? And how do I know this? How do I know that this regime, the Zelensky regime, controlled by Kolomoyskyi, is going to do this? Well, see what they have done so far, insofar as their war preparations at this time. See, one of the things that they've done is that they have armed civilians, and I've been banging the drum on this thing for a long time. See, or a long time, relatively speaking, of course. When the war started, the Zelensky regime said that they were going to hand out 10,000 weapons, AK-74s, to the citizenry. Now, right off the bat, you know that this is incredibly dangerous, right? Because regular citizens don't know how to fire weapons. They don't. Most people today in the West have never fired a weapon. Most people today in the West have never fired a weapon. Simple as. To give a weapon to some civilian, see, it's exceedingly dangerous, not because of the weapon itself. I mean, most weapons are fairly simple to operate. That's not the issue. And all you have to do is hold it up and point and shoot. Not complicated, right? No, that's not the issue. It's small arms tactics. See, because a weapon is only efficient when you are operating as a team with other individuals who are also, carrying weapons. And it's that training. That's what separates, civilians from soldiers. Civilians don't have that training. Of course not. And so the civilians with weapons, they're going to do all kinds of mistakes and fuck ups, and they're going to shoot each other and kill each other. Quite apart from the fact that the criminal element in Ukraine is capturing these weapons. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. In every country in the world, there is a criminal underclass. It is universal. And it is not putting down Ukraine by any stretch of the imagination to say that Ukraine has a criminal underclass. Every country has one. In Chile, we have one, okay? And in Chile, our criminal underclass, they take advantage of the situation whenever they can, and they do. And that doesn't mean that Chile is a bad country or evil country or anything like that, or no, it's just the reality of human existence. There's always going to be a criminal underclass, okay? And so arming civilians, it's inevitable that those weapons are going to wind up in the hands of the criminal underclass, because the criminal underclass will want them and will be happy to pay to get those weapons from the citizens, because these weapons have been handed out without any ID check or any registration, just tossed out there, which is insane. It's just fucking crazy. Unless you actually want civilians dead. There have been some videos I've been seeing recently showing dead Ukrainian civilians. What did they do? Well, they were throwing Molotov cocktails at Russian tank columns. That's what happened. Now, a Molotov cocktail at a tank isn't going to do a fucking thing, okay? It isn't. But what's a soldier manning the turret on a battle tank going to do when he sees some asshole throwing a Molotov cocktail at his fucking tank? He's going to shoot him, now won't he? Of course he will. And that's what's happening. And see, the Zelensky regime is encouraging civilians to have Molotov cocktails. That's fucking crazy. They want people to have Molotov cocktails so that they can put themselves in harm's way, so that they can die. And that's evil. I've said too about forcible conscription. They are forcibly conscripting people into the armed forces. Okay? Forcibly. men between the ages of 18 and 60. And now they removed even the upper limit. Now, that, again, is putting people who are unprepared, they're going to put them in uniform, and they're going to get shot, and they're going to get killed for nothing. They're arming criminals. This is true. They announced it. This is not me making shit up. This is true, true, true. They are arming criminals. They have gone to the prisons, and any criminal who has military experience is getting released and put in uniform. And the worst part is that now they are putting heavy weaponry among the civilian population. And this is true. I've seen photographic evidence. Let me repeat that. They are putting heavy weapons among the civilian population. They are using people as human shields. This is what the Zelensky government is doing, the Zelensky regime. Or should I call it the Kolomoyskyi regime? Because Igor Kolomoyskyi, this Ukrainian, Israeli Cypriot oligarch, who has 3 passports, so it's legal because there's no prohibition against having 3, only prohibition against having 2. Well, this oligarch, he's pulling the strings of this whole thing from Switzerland, as you please. And he's putting all these Ukrainian civilians, I mean, like cows to the slaughter. See, because I don't blame the Russians for shooting these people. Of course not. I'm a soldier. I'm 19 years old. I got a lot of training, you know. I'm a little nervous here. I'm invading a country, you know. I see some civilian. He throws some Molotov cocktail at me, or he shoots me with an AK-74. And I can tell right off the bat that this civilian doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's barely figured out how to hold the rifle and point it in the right direction, right? But, you know, this poor civilian might get lucky, so I'm sorry. I'm going to have to grease that civilian, and I'm going to fucking do it right on the spot. No hesitation, because you don't fuck around, you know? These are serious weapons we're talking about. God, it's so annoying to have to touch the screen every 3 minutes, but anyway. This is what's going on. And this is horrible. And it's going to lead to the death and misery of Ukrainians. For what? For who? Oh, man. I'm supposed to go on for a bit, but I'm just so depressed about this whole situation. And like I said, I'm emotionally frazzled, and fragile. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Kolomoyskyi and Zelensky will sacrifice the Ukrainian people for his clique to remain in power. That's the bottom line issue. Yeah, and the thing that I wanted to point out is something that I've all of a sudden realized. You know how, and this is actually interesting, and this I think that, yeah. Let me just get full on here, you know, in coach mode, and just really just tell you about this thing. See. Back in October in 2021, the U.S. State Department started claiming, and they started getting a little bit hysterical, and the National Security Council started claiming that the Russians were building up their army around the Ukrainian border. They really started going at this shit, right? And the Russians were like, what the fuck is going on here? We're not doing any fucking thing like that. And they kept insisting that the Russians were putting soldiers on the border. Well, it turns out, you know who was putting soldiers on the border that didn't get reported? And that apparently the Russians were fully aware of, but they're just simply not that good at the PR game, I suppose. Well, see, the Ukrainians, or the Zelensky regime was putting soldiers on the border with the Donbass, the breakaway republics. The Zelensky regime was about to invade the Donbass. And what we're realizing now is that basically the Russians beat them to the punch. See, the Zelensky regime, I mean, why are all these soldiers about to get captured in this cauldron maneuver that I explained? Because all of these guys, they were in that position in this very small, area that you're in. Let me put it the other way. It's this side on your screen, right? I mean, here's the border with Russia. Let me see if I can capture that properly. Here's the border of Russia roughly. And they were like here, okay? And Russia's like this big, amorphous thing in this direction, but they were right here. All of these between 45,000 and 100,000 soldiers. They're right here, right on the Donbass, right about to attack the breakaway republics. Yeah, because they were about to attack. In fact, a lot of the problems that the Ukrainian army has been suffering there is because they were in attack formation when they themselves were attacked. And as I understand it, I'm not a military guy, but people who know more have explained to me personally that what was likely going on was that the Ukrainian side, they were getting prepared for a full-on attack when they themselves were attacked, and it caught them by surprise. See? And that is why probably they're getting routed at this time. They got caught by surprise, as we all were, by the invasion. And they were thrown back on their heels, and they're trying to reorganize over these last few days, reorganize and hold back the advance, right? And as they hold back the advance, and then suddenly the Russians start like pull back and they fall forward, and it's been this push-pull kind of thing of they're disorganized while they're getting surrounded in this cauldron maneuver. And this is what it was explained to me by some military people, none of whom had any kind of like secret knowledge or any shit like that, any classified information. So, I don't think I'm giving anything away. Frankly, you could figure this out by just looking at a map and looking at the position of forces at this time. That this is basically what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so, see, we in the West have been taught to believe that the Russians invaded for no reason whatsoever, and then, the Russians keep insisting that NATO is expanding eastward, and they're tired of it. They don't want it anymore. They want it stopped. And the Ukrainian, the Westerners say that anybody can join NATO, but the fact is that, see, when you join NATO, it's a military alliance led by the United States, controlled by the United States. In fact, it's a big moneymaker for the United States, because by way of NATO, the United States obliges the NATO members to buy American weaponry. Mm-hmm. It's a money grab. That's basically what NATO is. Mm-hmm. And see, the United States and these co-religionists that I mentioned, they have had a hard-on for Russia for years. And what the vision for Russia that they have is that they want to capture Russia or control it and have it broken up into pieces, manageable pieces, bite-sized pieces. Mm-hmm. That's their goal. There are think tanks that have discussed this issue, that this is what they want to do to Russia. Break it up, into small independent units that they can control so they can suck it dry like they did back in the 90s. See, because the 90s for the Russians is a traumatic period. They don't like to remember that period at all, or sometimes they obsess about it so that they know it'll never happen again. When the Soviet Union collapsed and the Westerners and the Western capitalists came in and just sucked the country dry like fucking vampires. Mm-hmm. And they feel lucky that they pulled off this vampire from their neck. And they don't want any part of that. Certainly not Putin. And what's interesting is that Putin, when he started out, he was our guy. That's what the West thought. The West thought that Putin is our guy. Proved them wrong now, didn't he? Oh yeah, because he's an ethnic nationalist. He thinks it's a tragedy that something like 40 million Russians were left, essentially homeless, on a national level when they were left outside of Mother Russia, because he sees those 40 million Russians that were left in Belarus and Ukraine and the Baltic states, but especially Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Georgia. He views that diaspora as a tragedy, and he wants those people back under the umbrella of Russia. See? He doesn't have any territorial ambitions for like Poland or Hungary or some shit like that. He doesn't give a shit about those countries because he's an ethnic nationalist. That's what it is. See? And that's why people like Victoria Nuland, like Zelensky, like Anthony Blinken, they hate Putin because he's an ethnic nationalist. See? He doesn't buy any of this multicultural shit. And yeah, Russia is a multicultural country because it has all these, different peoples under the one umbrella. But at the end of the day, he's an ethnic nationalist. That's what's going on. And they hate him for it. They really do. Now, you look at a map, and there's like a meme floating around. Look at a map that compares NATO territory in 1998 and in 2021. And if you don't tell me that's an expansion, then I got a bridge to sell you, man. I mean, come on. It is most definitely an expansion. It's an expansion of the NATO borders to capture as much territory. And NATO itself, after the end of the Cold War, didn't really have a mission, but they had to maintain the mission so that they could continue selling weapons to the NATO members. So they created one. And what was that mission? Well, they named Russia as the primary adversary. That's what they did, you know? And here we are. So the Ukrainians were, it seems that they had gathered all those forces in eastern Ukraine for an assault on the breakaway republics to try to recapture them. And the Russians decided, nyat. And they went ahead and invaded Ukraine. And here we are. And how good has this invasion been? Well, after 7 days, okay, the last information I had, which is midnight last night, they've conquered roughly a third of the country, some 200,000 square kilometers. They've conquered, they control it, okay? So, you know, I looked this up, by the way. You know, I don't know this shit off the top of my head like a human encyclopedia, right? But I did look this shit up. Iraq has a territory of some 438,000 square kilometers. Ukraine has something like 606,000. Okay. So it took the American army 3 weeks to get control of all 438,000 square kilometers of Iraq, right? And, you know, just to make a simple arithmetic calculation, what would that be? 438 divided by 3 weeks, you know, is what? My brain is mush right now. Roughly about 150,000, 140,000 square kilometers per week, right? And the Russians have captured a third of Ukraine, which is 200,000 square kilometers. So if you're just doing it like this stupid numbers game that Americans love to play, well, the Russians are winning, and by a lot, okay? I mean, if you say that the Americans conquered about 140,000 square kilometers, yeah, that sounds about right. Or actually, no, 145,000 square kilometers. And the Russians have captured 202,000 square kilometers, you know, as of exactly 1 week. They're winning by about over 30%, close to 40%. That's the pace of the Russians. And what's most important, and for me, the thing that, when I say this, Ukrainians get really upset because I say that the Russians have been incredibly gentle in their invasion of Ukraine. And it gets them crazy upset. But see, it's the truth. Because when the Americans invade you, as they have, they destroy everything. It's Dresden for them. They just destroy everything. You know, your hospitals, your electrical stations, you know, your, I mean, not just the power grid itself, but like the plants that create the electricity, you know, and they'll destroy your water supply, your sewage system, and forget about cell phones or anything. They'll destroy everything. You know? That's the American mode of war, to destroy everything. I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's fucking despicable. And the Russians, I am on the fucking internet on day 8 of this fucking invasion that is going their way. They are winning. And I have fucking internet, fucking electricity, fucking, you know, every fucking thing, you know? What does that tell you? Look, the Russians are not fucking saints, but they're carrying out a war as gently as they possibly can. And if that bothers Ukrainians to put it that way, fine. You want me to put it in another way, in another language that, you know, doesn't hurt your fucking fifis? Fine. But the reality is, if the Russians really wanted to totally waste this country, they would have done it already. And they can do it. If they wanted to totally annihilate Ukraine, I mean, turn it into fucking rubble, they could do it. They would have done so already. Look, see, it's very easy to destroy something totally. It's very difficult and takes a great deal of skill, as a matter of fact, to capture something intact. And that's what the Russians are trying to do. It's very clear. They are trying to capture the whole country intact with as little damage as possible. But the problem is that the Zelensky regime thinks that if it stretches out this war and kills as many Ukrainians as possible, destroys as many, or rather gets the Russians to kill as many Ukrainians as possible, gets the Russians to destroy as many infrastructure elements or buildings or whatnot, if it does that, if it stretches it out and blames it all on the Russians, then the West will come in, you know, like the knights on the white horse, and save Zelensky. I'm sorry, what's his guy's name? It always slips my mind. Kolomoyskyi's bacon. Hmm? Oh, wait, he's Jewish, so he doesn't eat bacon, I take it. Right, so Kolomoyskyi's money, I guess. That's all these fuckers care about, money. Yeah? Kolomoyskyi is the oligarch who is pulling the strings on Zelensky. And Kolomoyskyi wants this to stretch out as much as possible so that it will emotionally blackmail the West into joining a war that it cannot win, by the way, because the Americans can't beat the Russians, not on their home turf, and not when, for the Russians, it's existential. The Russians are going to go to the mat. They're going to go all the way. They're going to throw everything at it. And remember, they haven't thrown their prime gear yet. They haven't thrown the best of the stuff that they got. See, but people like Kolomoyskyi, people like Victoria Nuland, who's this warmonger, an insane woman, by the way. I mean, just fucking insane person. I mean, you read up on Victoria Nuland and you're like fucking horrified about her. These people, they want, it's horrifying to say it, but I'll say it. They don't mind maintaining their power and their money if it costs the lives of every last Ukrainian man, woman, and child. And that's the truth. Kolomoyskyi, Zelensky, Victoria Nuland, Wendy Sherman, Anthony Blinken, all they care about is their own money and their own power, and they will sacrifice every last Ukrainian man, woman, or child to maintain it. These people are evil. Simple as that. And these are the people who are creating this. They have created this condition. They provoked the Russians deliberately. That Ukrainian army that they positioned to invade the Donbass, it is now becoming increasingly clear, at least to me, that that was the issue that they have been arguing. All of these people, Macron and Putin and all these people in these backroom conversations, that's what they were arguing about. Because they didn't mention this before. This army was sort of like an invisible army, and all of a sudden it's a big deal because it's about to get captured, and everybody's freaking out. See? Now they're realizing that they're going to lose this war. And so now, since they're going to lose this war, they were so confident that they were going to invade the Donbass and take it over, and they were going to pretend that they were doing it because of the threat of the Russian invasion, the threat of the Russian gathered armies, you know? They always project, have you noticed? When they do something or they're about to do something, they always say that you're the one who's going to do it, that you're the one who's going to invade, but it turns out that they're the one who wants to invade. In this case, Putin just beat them to the punch. That's that. And this army that was massing in the Donbass, this Ukrainian army that Kolomoyskyi had ordered his puppet Zelensky to amass and to put there, ready to attack, that's what they were arguing about. And Putin beat them to the punch, and here we are, and so we have this war. And so now the Kolomoyskyi, Zelensky regime wants to stretch this out, inflict as many casualties as possible among the Ukrainian citizens against their own citizens, so as to cause the rest of the world to be like, oh no, we can't let that happen. Let's go to war. And the worst part, the thing that freaks me the fuck out, notice how they are starting to normalize nuclear war. Notice how on Twitter, you got these blue checkmark imbeciles starting to say that, oh, it's not that big of a deal. A 20 kiloton weapon, its yield is not that bad. You can survive it. You can continue and maintain. What the fuck are you talking about? This afternoon, I witnessed some bomb drop, right? And it was at least 4 kilometers away from me. And it was the loudest explosion I'd ever heard in my life. I mean, it was like, like fireworks, right? But multiply that by 10. And on top of that, this fucking thing was, I'm telling you, it was like at least 3-4 kilometers away from my location. Holy fucking shit, okay? It was one fucking bomb. It was a normal fucking bomb. Imagine a nuclear weapon, man. And these people are fucking normalizing it because they're getting everybody amped up and ready by way of their propaganda, their lies, to go to nuclear war. They're insane. These people are fucking insane. The Biden administration, the Johnson administration, all these fucking people are crazy. We gotta get rid of them. It's as simple as that. You can't have a civilization with insane people running shit. People who are so bloodthirsty and despicable that they will throw away the lives of innocent people needlessly so that they can maintain their power. It's unconscionable. I mean, forget about like it's unchristian, which it is, And I'm not even, I was born Catholic, but I'm, fuck religion. But dude, nobody can be that fucking bloodthirsty. I mean, what, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm melting down here. Okay. I mean, because I find it so horrible. As I get older, I look at young people, kids who are in their 20s and 30s. And I mean, yeah, you think, oh, a 30-year-old man, he's a man. Well, I look at him, it looks like a fucking baby to me, right? I'm 54, fuck off. And so the point is, see, I look at these soldiers who are going to be trapped now by the Russians. And if they're ordered to fight to the death, it'll be for nothing. And 30,000, which is the absolute minimum number, and likely closer to 60,000 men, they're going to die. These babies, they're the children of mothers who are going to mourn them and probably die very quickly of a broken heart, because that happens, by the way. Lots of women, when they lose their sons, they die too, because frankly, for any human being, your children are the most important thing. And if you lose them, even if you have a bunch, if you lose one of them, it's irreplaceable. It's a black hole that will, that will never be filled. And so to think of all those young men who will die for nothing, except for some rich, fat bastard in Switzerland with his 3 passports and his billions of dollars that he stole, he will be the one making the decision that will end the lives of all those brave Ukrainian soldiers. Think how disgusting this is. This rich oligarch in Switzerland with his 3 passports will puppeteer Zelensky into giving the order for those men to fight to the death for no reason whatsoever except so that they can get rich. Get rich and get those, that EU membership that they so crave. For what? So that they can steal some more. If that's what the West is supporting, look, I'm in the middle of the situation, right? And I'm gonna, I'm gonna end the stream pretty soon now because I'm so emotional. I'm just so pissed off. Okay, I'm so pissed off to think of all of this needless suffering is going to happen because of some rich bastard in Switzerland. It's just really oh man. I mean, come on, can you fuckers who are in chat hit me with a big F you if you agree with me that it's despicable that some rich guy in Switzerland, a mobster, a mafioso, is going to throw away the lives of all of these people, innocent people, people who could do so much for Ukraine, whose lives could be filled with wonderful achievements that will make Ukraine a better country, that will make not merely richer in terms of money, but richer in terms of beauty, in terms of creativity, the children that will not be born because of this. Ukraine has suffered horribly over the last century. It suffered 3 separate famines caused by the Soviets. Did you know that? Everybody only talks about the one in 1932, right? Well, that was pretty fucking bad, but there was also the one in 21 and in 25. And those were also deliberate. Ukraine has suffered so much. And to suffer again, I just don't understand it. Okay? So that's what's happening, you know. And look, realistically, me talking about this shit is fucking dangerous as fuck. Yeah. Because see, I'm here in Ukraine. I'm in Kharkov. I'm in the backyard of this pissant bastard Kolomoyskyi, or whatever the fuck his fucking name is. Yeah, it's not actually his backyard anymore because, he lives in fucking Switzerland. Cowardly fuck. But anyway, see, this fucker has actual militiamen going around. He funds the fascists, the neo-Nazis. He actually does. And he's Jewish, man. Unbelievable. But anyway, I mean, how low can you get? I mean, how low? But anyway, see, this fucker can actually have people hurt me. And from what I understand, from the people who saw shit, the lady at the apartment building and the very good neighbor, and these fuckers meant business, okay? And it was just dumb luck that I slipped away. Just dumb fucking luck. Now the issue becomes, will they come for me again? Maybe, if they find out where I am, But see, the easy choice is to keep quiet. The easy choice is to say, I don't want to get involved. And the thing is, see, it's easier to stay quiet. It's just easier. It's easier to stay quiet. But see, and what the truth is. And if everybody stays quiet, then, these kinds of abuses will continue. I mean, you have to make a stand and say, no, enough. You have to speak your mind. You have to stop silencing yourself. You have to say the truth. And see, because we all know the truth. We all know it, see? We're just afraid to say it. We're afraid to punch up. Because we think that it's going to hurt us. We think we're going to be the only one. And see, maybe we are the only one. And most definitely, if we punch up, those fuckers, they don't have any scruples about punching down at us. But the thing is, see, getting hit doesn't hurt that bad. That's the thing I discovered. I was bullied a lot, and I discovered that getting hit, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant at all. It hurt, but it wasn't that bad. And in fact, you got hit really, really, really hard by a bunch of guys. You got jumped by half a dozen guys, as I have been. And you just keep on swinging, right? And it's not that bad. And you get the shit kicked out of you. But swinging back, even if you're terribly unsuccessful, at least you kept your dignity. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing, having some dignity. And when you see something really despicable, speaking your mind, saying it, pointing it out, pointing it right at it, and saying that's fucking wrong. Whatever you think of Putin and his whole cabal, which is another very thorny issue, but whatever you think of those fucking people, see, just because you don't like them doesn't mean that you have to like with or side with the other guy. Am I, a fanboy of Vladimir Putin? No, no. He's probably an awful guy in a lot of ways. But does that mean that because of that, because of my potential antipathy towards Vladimir Putin, I'm going to side with gangsters who are willing to throw away innocent lives of Ukrainians so that they can maintain their positions? No, no, no. I hope that you guys understand that, you know, there are some things that are worth taking a risk, and there are some things that are worth taking the hit. And if a lot of Ukrainians are listening to me and they get upset with me and they're offended by me, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm telling you the truth. And if you can't handle the truth, like that line from the movie, can you handle the truth? Well, you ought to. Because if you don't face the truth and deal with it, then you're going to die for nothing. And your whole country will be ruined, turned to rubble for nothing. Nothing except the enrichment of a man living in his Swiss castle with his 3 passports. Take it easy.